What's up, guys? Monday evening, 8 o'clock. Just getting finished up for the day where I come out here and start on our projects. I got the Veney heads getting ready to go together. Got them in the washer right now. Gonna pull them out and we're gonna bring them next door, and we're gonna set them up and talk a little bit about valve springs. Hope everybody had a good Easter. Didn't get a whole bunch done this weekend. Yesterday, I came out here for about an hour and made a little bracket, put my trans brake button. Feels pretty good. I got it right there below the air shifters, first gear. So I did that yesterday, and we went to Lakeview Motor Speedway Saturday night. We didn't get home about 2 a.m. So I didn't get up till about 9, and then my wife made a nice dinner for us yesterday. Just us, me, her, Anthony, and Anthony's fiance, and played out here for a little bit, and that was about it. Weekend went by real quick. So getting ready to pull these heads out of here. I'm gonna blow them off. Shut this off. Should be nice and hot. Nothing like some steamy Veney heads. So last we left, I finished the valve job a couple days ago, and like I said, it's got finished up for the day now. I threw these in the washer. I'm going to take them back there and talk about some valve springs and the selection I'm using for valve springs, and put these together, and we'll be one step a little closer. I'll tell you, those Veney heads are rough, and man, I got my reservations about if we're going to make our goal of 390. And let me tell you, 390 in the 8th mile, we're still going to be the slowest funny car out there. But just wanted to reiterate, I had a couple messages. I try to answer all the messages that come through, and a couple people had expressed their feelings that they don't agree with a couple of things I'm doing. And again, these videos aren't a how-to for you to do it. I'm just showing you how I do it. Me being, like I said, on a real tight budget, this is how I do it. And hopefully you guys are going to come along for the ride from the beginning of, you've been watching, from putting this funny car together, and see some of the half-baked ideas and bargain basement parts we're using. And if we get there together and go to my goal of 390 together, well, we'll know. The proof will be in the pudding, showing that some of these theories that I use work. And this is the first time I've done that kind of live in real time. Had good luck for the last 35 years since I've been doing this. But again, started without any money and still don't have any money. So, but we'll do it together. And if we don't get to our performance goal, then we could all sit around and laugh about it and maybe have some funny stories to tell. But if we do get there, hell, if we get to that 390 threshold with this junk engine, well, let me tell you, after that, baby, it ain't nothing but up from there. So we'll see if we get there. Like I said, 390 in the 8th mile isn't really a great time, but I think it'll be enough to get us in the field and get us started. And like I said, it'll be all up from there. So I'm gonna blow these off right quick. Get these dried up, and let's take them in there, and we'll start putting them together. All right, let's pop these valves in. I got my oil can out here with my Nitro 70. Stuff's like Frank's hot sauce. I put that shit on everything. Juice these up a little bit. We'll grab the exhaust valves and we'll pop them in. So we got our head set up on the seat and guide machine, and I use this machine to assemble the heads instead of using a valve spring compressor. It's much easier to line the head up and use the spindle. Let's put my spring adapter in there because we're working with some pretty good spring pressure. If you notice, I don't use any valve seals. On a blown alcohol motor, we're not really worried about sealing up 100%. If we have good guides and they're in decent shape, there's no need to put seals on them. Plus the exhaust, you want some lubrication, and the intake, you want a little bit of lubrication because the methanol, the alcohol is very, very dry. It dries everything out. And we didn't talk much about valve guides. I ran my little Sun and Hone through them just to put a little finish on them, make sure there was any burrs in them. The sizes were already wide enough. A blown motor, alcohol motor, you want to add a little clearance, especially in the exhaust. We usually add about 1 thou in the exhaust and about an extra 1/2 thou in the intake. If it was a blown gas or a nitro motor, we even have more clearance in the guide. These are cast iron guides, so they're not as prone to gall as a bronze guide with extreme pressure and temperature. And it's an old used head. Like I said, these heads are pretty well used and abused and beat up. I mean, it's a billet head from 1983, so they've been used. Kind of having my reservations about them, but it's what we got. And like I said, hopefully you'll stay on the journey with me, and hopefully my predictions are close, but we'll find out together. If you notice, I got some of these. Remember these from your small block Chevy? These valve seals, these little O-rings, which are about as useful as tits on a bull. Well, if you notice, I just pop them on there. I just use it to hold the valve up to assemble it, and that's the only reason. And it's fine. They'll stay on there. They don't seal or really do anything, but it does help enable to hold the valve up so I can measure and when I'm putting the keepers together, not fumbling around, the valve's falling down, and I'm trying to hold it from underneath. So the springs I picked were PAC 1248s. I said I really like PAC springs. PAC brand and PSI springs are probably the two exclusive sets of springs I use, brands. And I do use some Iskies. I always had good luck with Iski, especially the Gold Stripe, the Tool Room series. The PAC 1248s are a readily available spring. It's a triple spring, Vasco wire, good lifespan. And the main thing is to really think about what you're trying to do here. The top running guys, the real competitive guys, are going to be using a lot of spring pressure, and they're going to be changing their springs often. A lot of spring pressure controls the valves. You know, the Hemi has a problem, an inherent problem alone, trying to keep the lifter on the cam. Hemis are prone to lofting the valve. Lofting the valve is when you're throwing the valve open. Some guys build motors specifically to do that, especially in the stock eliminator motors that are limited to the stock lifts. But that's a whole nother story. The PAC 1248s, if you notice, they set in at 332 pounds on the seat at 2-inch 100, okay? 950 open at 1-inch 200. They coil bind at 1-inch 130. One thing I hear guys say constantly that I don't agree with, oh, well, I set my springs up a mile from coil bind to make sure if they float, I'll never get into coil bind and break a spring. Well, that's something you don't want to do. You don't want to set it up a mile from coil bind. And the reason I'm saying that is you want to get the full effective pounds per square inch. So if you're 950 pounds at 1-inch 200 and you set it up on the seat, let's say at 2-inch 100, and let's say you only have a 600 lift cam in the motor, okay, which would be odd because that's not a very big cam, just using it for a round number. But if you had to set up a 2-inch 100 and had a 600-inch cam in the motor, well, you would be about 1-inch 4, let's see, 1-inch 200 minus 600, you'd be 1-inch 500 open. So we're 950 at 1-inch 200. If you set up a mile from coil bind at 1 inch, if your cam was only 600 lift and you were totally open only at 1 inch 500, well, you're 300 thousandths from getting that max open pressure. So you're never getting up to the pressure open. So it's worse to keep it a mile from coil bind. My rule of thumb, I like to set them up 50 thousandths to coil bind. And you don't have to use it as a dead number. 40 thousandths being the low, 60 thousandths being the high. You got some numbers to work with here. So 332 pounds at 2 inch 100. I'm going to shorten that up. I picked this spring. I want to set this up at 2 inch. Okay. So if I have what I have an 800 lift cam at 2 inch. 800 minus 2 inch would be 1 inch. Let's see. That doesn't sound right. If I was 800 lift, yeah. On 200, I would be right at 1 inch 200 open. I'm gonna have my pressure exactly right, and I'm gonna be 1/130 from coil bind. So that's gonna give me, I'm gonna be right at 70 thousandths from coil bind. So what I'll probably do, I'll go ahead and add a 20 thousandths shim and get it closer to that 50 thousandths number. So let's just go over that again. We're going to set up, instead of 2 inch at the seat, instead of 2 inch 100 at the seat, 332, 2 inch 100, we're going to set up a 2 inch, okay? We have 800 lift of available valve lift. 800 lift is going to be 1 inch 200, 800 minus 2 inch, 1 inch 200. And then we still have our coil bind at 1 inch 130, 70 thousandths, 1 inch 200 to 1 inch 130, 70 thousandths, and we'll shim that up another 20 to get us to 50. So let's go ahead and check exactly what we have on the spring checker. Now I've already checked this so I can show you. And the way I do this, just use a pair of calipers. I'm not using no fancy valve shim tool, the spring tool. I mean, and you can, if you got one, that's fine. Make sure my valve's open. I go from the top of the retainer to the bottom. So I got 2 inch 100 right now. And I've already added my 30,000 shim. We were talking about 25,000 shim. So 2 inch 100 from the top of my retainer. Now, obviously seat pressure is from the bottom of the pad to the inside ledge of the retainer. So I want 2 inch. My retainer thickness, I've already measured, is 100 thousandths thick. So I could check it at 2 inch 100, see where I'm at, set it up on my spring tester, take away my 100, you follow me? So I'm still 2 inch from the bottom of my pad to the bottom of my retainer. And that just fell apart. That's okay. But that's what we're looking for. 332 at 2 inch 100. Well, we're going to drop it down 100 thousandths so we can take advantage of all the spring has to offer. So we'll walk over to the valve spring checker. Let's go over that. And I hope I'm explaining this correctly. It's a little tough to explain, but I think most of the people watching this are getting the gist of it. So I got a run-of-the-mill spring tester. We actually got a couple of them hanging around the shop, but they're all the same. There's one over there. This is your regular standard of the industry Rimac spring tester. It's got a scale on it. What you want to do, and you can pick these up pretty cheap. They're always on eBay. It's a good thing to have for if you're doing heads. I mean, you got to have one. I mean, there's just no way around it. You got to know what you got. We have one we take to the track that we could bolt on the motor and check them between rounds, but usually there's no need to do that because we're putting new springs on here unless we're having a problem and the motor's skipping or missing and we think we're getting into valve float, then I'll check them. But I like to check them here at the shop. An old Rimac tester, I mean, they make new ones, digital ones, and so forth. The main thing, if you're going to buy one of these old ones, you got to get you a calibrated spring. And you can buy these from most machine shop supplies. And what this is, and it's made by Rimac also, and this is just to constantly double check my machine. Kind of like using a micrometer and checking your mic with a standard all the time. And this is just a tool room spring, a checking spring. And on it, it says at 2 inches, it should have 119 pounds. So we'll bring this down to 2 inches. Two inches, 119 pounds. And this dial here has a little lever, little tab on it, and you can move it, to get it to bring, like a pair of calipers to bring it in. Now, what I always do, I don't go by the ruler here. I'll double check when I bring this down. I'll double check with a pair of calipers and put my 2 inch there, just so I'm double checking. Just using a ruler, using my dial calipers to double check it. So now, put our spring on there. Now remember, we got our retainer, so we have an extra 100 thousandths going on there right now. So if we check this at 2 inch 100, we're right at 410 pounds. And again, that's at 2 inch 100, but we've added the retainer in. But theoretically, we're really 2 inch once we take away the width of that, the thickness of that retainer. And that's what I'm looking for there. What I would do on something like this, let's walk back out there. But yeah, you got to get you, at least, you're buying one of these used or off of eBay or Marketplace, spend the $90 and get you a calibrated spring. And I just sits here on the wall. And every time I do a high-end set of heads, or periodically I check it, because someone come over here and fooling around with it and hit the gauge and move it around. You want to make sure where you're at. So spring pressures. What's the optimum spring pressure? Well, that's hard to say. You got to take a lot of things in consideration. And one of the things I take in consideration is what size cam core we're using. Now, all them old Hemis started out with the same journal as a 426 Hemi, 2 inch. Then they went up to 54 millimeter, 2 1/8. Then they went up to 60s, 65, 70s. Well, on the early ones, in the early TFX blocks, used the same cam bearings as your old 426 Hemi. And if you just look, you see how thin the core is. And, back when these cams were prevalent, 70s and 80s, 350 pounds was a lot of spring pressure. Well, you start putting a whole ton of what people use today for spring pressures. I mean, I see guys setting their springs up to 500 pounds at the seat. This cam will flex its ass off like a spaghetti noodle. So you got to know what you're working with. You can't say, well, there's better springs than what you're using, but if you're using old shit, then you kind of got to stick with some of the old technology to go with it, because you could easily surpass a spring that was developed maybe 15, 20 years ago, and you're using a cam that was developed 40 years ago. You're going to have problems. So these early motors I'm running right now are still 426 Hemi cam journals, small 2 inch cam journals. So I'm going to be careful and not to go overboard with the springs, because too much spring is a lot of maintenance. We know we got old rockers. These are, the Veney heads. We got old Veney rockers. These are Norris intake rockers. And I don't even know what brand, if Veney made these himself, if they're not Cloughs. They almost look like I don't know if it could have been an old Jessel. There's no name on them. They're stainless steel. They're like a forge or investment cast thing, and they look pretty robust. But again, Talking about a 40-year-old set of rockers, I ain't going to take these old rockers and these old aluminum stands and put 500 pounds at the seat and 1,200 pounds over the nose. This stuff's going to look like broken Legos when I open the valve cover up. And we got to be realistic on our RPM range. This first motor, 8,500 RPMs. If we really got to lean on it, maybe 8,800. But we know a competitive top alcohol car is running 10,000 RPMs. We got to be realistic. We can't do that. We know we're not building a 350 capable car. If we could get to the 390s, like I keep talking about, like sound like a broken record with the 390s, but if we could just get there, the main thing is to get there. Once it's together, if we can get 4.0s, 390s, and then we can work on it from there. So the main, goal is just to get it together, keep it running, not blow parts all over the track, and then we could go on to the next step. Then we could take one of the other blocks, and we could take I got a set of broken Brad heads that are much newer than that, with a block with a bigger cam cord, and we could slowly step up from there. So anyway, back to the spring pressures. We know we got titanium valves that are light, and 350 pounds on the seat is more than enough to go 8,500, 8,800 RPMs with lightweight valve train. So, and it'll be easy on the rocker arms, easy on the push rod ends, the tips. Now I'm talking an NA motor. An NA motor, 8,500, 8,800, 350 pounds on the seat, should be no problem. It should go that all season long. So what I use as my rule of thumb, I go by what is our max blower boost going to be? Pounds per square inch. Our blower boost is going to be 50 pounds. I'm thinking the most we'll probably try to pump through this old motor. So 50 pounds of boost. I'm going to take my 340, 350 pounds at the seat. I'm going to add another 50 pounds for my boost because that's pushing on the bottom of the valves. You got to remember, on a blown motor, it's very critical on the intake side, where if you're building an NA motor, everybody's always worried about the exhaust side. The exhaust side everyone worries about on an NA motor because the piston is always chasing the exhaust valve up, where the intake is starting to open when the piston's going down. On the intake stroke, well, the exhaust is always chasing, the piston is always chasing the exhaust valve up to push the exhaust gas out. So on an NA motor, if it misses a beat, pow, the piston comes up, slams the exhaust door closed. The intake, we got that extra 50 pounds of pressure, or more, some guys, some instances, but we know we're not going to be no more than 50 with this motor. We probably got even a little more blower. We probably going to use that big Superman Cabelco, make more than that, but 50 pounds is going to be our limit with this motor. So 50 pounds, we know at 350 pounds of spring pressure is good for an NA motor to go 8,800. Well, we'll add another 50 pounds on the spring pressure to compensate for that extra 50 pounds trying to push that valve open. And a lot of times what I do is, as we check the springs, every weekend when we come home, we'll be checking the springs. I'll be pulling the heads off, checking the springs. And usually after the first, 3 or 4 runs, the springs always drop down 30 pounds, 25, 30 pounds right off the bat. And then they kind of take set and they hold. So as I'm setting them up now, I kind of factor that extra 25 pounds in there, knowing that in a few runs, like if I want 400 pounds right now, if I want 400 pounds at the end of Saturday after we make 5 runs, well, I'm going to set it up now at 425 pounds because it's going to drop 25 pounds, and then the springs will take set, and they'll usually stay that way for the rest of the season, unless we're not doing nothing crazy. And if I notice they're starting to go away, I'll usually buy a half a set of springs. I'll start cycling my intake springs over to my exhaust and start adding new springs on the intake side. So I'm always ending up with an extra half set of springs, if that makes sense. So we set up at 430 pounds, 425 pounds, drop down to 400. We run. All of a sudden now we start checking them maybe 2-3 months later. If in a perfect world, we notice that the intakes are now starting to drop down, 375, 360, maybe 350. And the exhaust is going to drop down together. So I'll take the 350-pound springs that drop down, and we'll either save them we'll put a brand new set of 8, 4 and 4 on the heads, and we'll start saving those for spares for our exhaust side. So as the next time around, if the exhaust, another couple months happen, and we notice from 350 pounds, the exhaust starting to drop down below that, then we'll take the springs we just took off at 350 pounds and we'll cycle them to the exhaust. So we're always ending up, so we get basically brand new set of springs, run them, they start getting weak, we change the intakes, we change the exhaust, we're always getting we're getting double the time out of our exhaust springs. For myself, how I do it. Again, I'm not telling you how you need to set yours up. I'm just telling you how I do it, how these methods have worked for me to run on a budget and get all the life I can out of my parts. So anyway, enough of that. Let's go ahead and start putting this head together. And we can tag and bag them. They'll be done. And then this week we can start balancing that crank. Maybe this weekend we'll be putting that bottom end together. So let's go ahead and jump on this right quick. Now, of course, I'm checking every spring because they're old heads and we had to fix the valve job. And every time you do a valve job, you're cutting the seat and you're pushing the valve up higher and higher. And it's hard to control them exactly the same. So every one, we're going to go over here and we're going to check them with our calipers and make sure we're holding that 2-inch 100 number is what we want. And I'm not totally cheap. I put a brand new set of Comp Super Machine valve locks on. Every time I change springs, I buy a new set of valve locks because the inside groove of that lock gets beat up pretty good. And $25-30 a set, I feel like it's some kind of insurance for me to think that the valve's going to hang in there. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how this works right quick. It's pretty cool to not have to fumble around with the So it's got a pedal on the bottom. This table floats around by air. And set it over the top there. And I got the spindle lock so I could use the wheel to turn it down so it won't jack up on me. And you're talking, we're at 430 pounds of seat pressure here. You're trying to put that, if anyone's ever used the old regular hand valve spring compressor, trying to compress that on a workbench with this between your legs. I've had them go flying between my legs, about take off my manhood. One of these days we'll get something to hold the phone. It would be easier if I wasn't holding the phone. I'm making this look much harder than it really is. I usually keep a little magnetic. I'm gonna have to put the phone down. Give me a second. There we go. Let me just back the wheel off. Two done. I'll move it down. Get another retainer. Check it. Like I said, I'm gonna check each and every one, and we might jockey some shims around because we want to hold that 50 thousandths to coil bind. So I'm going to turn this off for a second and finish popping this head together. And I just feel it's much more accurate to check the top of the retainer. Normally I'd have my finger holding that up as usual. See, it's so much easier to check it there than trying to get down underneath it here. So as long as you're checking your thickness of your retainer and you know what you're working with, you're working with a 100 thousandths thick retainer, and you just add that in. So if you want 2-inch at the seat, you're looking for 2-inch 100 with the spring tester on top of the retainer. I hope I'm explaining it. I know it's tough, probably the way I'm explaining it to make any sense, but if anybody has any questions, if something I'm saying is not making sense, or just message me and I'll go over it with you if so need to be. But finish popping this one together, then I'm going to flip it over and we'll do the exhaust side. And I want to set the exhaust up exactly the same, 2-inch, so I get my same 425 pounds of the seat. And there you go. Got it together. And the only last thing I do is take the brass hammer and give them all a taparoni. Make sure they're all this helps get that taper seated. You see we got the recessed keepers because we're going to run lash caps. Remember, we got titanium valves, so we got to put them hardened lash caps on there so the rocker doesn't mushroom into it, the roller on the rocker. But so our heads are together. Monday evening, it's about 10 o'clock. Gonna call it a day, and maybe tomorrow night we'll get started on something else. We're a little closer. This weekend's the second IHRA race up in Virginia, the Virginia Motorsports, that VRI up there. Used to be that NHRA track. Used to be the Virginia for Lovers Nationals or something. But anyway, they're going this weekend. We won't be racing. We'll be right here, having fun as usual. All right, guys. Have a good rest of your evening. We'll check in with you a little later in the week.